federal government is rolling out a grocery assistance program as affordability pressures
This
persist.
will deliver hundreds of dollars more into the bank accounts of more than 12 million Canadians. Starting this year, we're taking the existing GST credit amount and raising it by 25% for 5 years. And in addition, we're providing a one-time payment equivalent to 50% of the GST credit this year. Right now, a family of 4 receives about $1,100 a year with the existing GST credit. With the new Canada Groceries and Essentials benefit, that same family will receive up to $1,890 this year and about $1,400 a year for each of the next 4 years. A single person receives about $540 a year with the existing credit. With the new benefit, that person will receive up to $950 this year and about $700 a year for the next 4 years. On average, these payments make up for the higher level of food prices since the pandemic. In parallel, we're working to address the root causes of inflation and working on longer-term solutions to bring down the cost of groceries in Canada. That starts by improving the resilience of our supply chains. Because when issues arise in supply chains, from transportation to process to distribution, costs rise at every step along the way, and these costs end up on grocery bills. Tariffs, for example, are part of that problem. In September, the government launched what we called a new strategic response fund to help sectors across our economy, those impacted by tariffs, to adapt, to diversify, and to grow. And today, we are committing $500 million from this fund to support capital investments to help food businesses expand capacity, increase productivity, and strengthen our food supply for the future. In addition, our Regional Tariff Response Initiative will provide $150 million for small and medium-sized enterprises to do similar things. This will mean more resilient supply chains, more greenhouses, more abattoirs that are closer to customers, and most importantly, will help mean lower food prices and better food security for Canadians.
There are questions that still remain about the impact and timing and the expectations of what Prime Minister Carney is looking at rolling out, right?
That's for sure. And you know, you listen to the way he presented it. What it is, like, it's taking the GST rebate and renaming it.
Yeah, Gary, I'm missing you on the screen, bud.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
It's taking the GST and renaming it, and adding a 25 over the next 5 years, upping it by 25%.
Right. And
also a one-time 25% payment. So, you know, there's some new money involved, and he's saying that it's going to help a family of 4.
Right.
Yeah. And that's great. And even like a single person. But you're still only in one group or 2 groups. Those who qualified for the GST rebates qualify for this. It's not expanded in any way to help others who may be feeling the pressure. You know, on either end. You know, you may have some people who are just over what the higher level of salary is, but they're having a hard time as well.
Yeah.
They're in a slightly higher income bracket, so they're probably up over into the next tax bracket as well, which is you know, grabbing more money from them, and so they're having just as hard a time. And on the other end of it, there is nothing like for a lot of seniors who are really having a tough time making ends meet.
Yeah.
So
you know what, Gary? I mean, there's always some sort of an expectation that all Canadians have of any kind of a program that the government does roll out. Okay, fine. Prime Minister Carney did roll something out where he renamed it and threw some extra buck in it. You know what? Number one, at this particular point in time, anything extra is a good thing. Does it go far enough? Hell no, not at all. But then again, I think any of us, and I'll ask you this question, Gary, I mean, from an expectation perspective, I think we'd be hard pressed to identify, well, what would I, as a Canadian citizen, like to see in terms of help from the federal government in terms of the cost of groceries? And it's different for everyone. Is it extra money in your pocket at the end of the day? I think there's a good portion of that's included in here. What about being able to afford the groceries with the money I have? Well, the problem with that is we, unfortunately, not fortunately or unfortunately, just the way the world works, we're a capitalist country. We're not talking about American capitalism, but we are a capitalist country. And unless a government can put a moratorium or a capper on business entities on how much money they can actually make as a profit, they're going to keep on raising prices, Gary, whether there's a supply chain issue or not, because they can. So, what does a government do? Now they're going to what? Be expected to regulate grocery prices so citizens can afford it? And then you take the next step into that and you say, well, doesn't that kind of speak about a government going beyond social programs, where you're starting to getting into communist programs, if you want to call it? I mean, I'm just speaking very loosely here. So where do we as Canadians, or the majority of Canadians, can actually say, the government is actually doing something for me where I can actually afford groceries? And what is that? Those are some huge questions for our politicians to face. And you know what? Whether it's a question towards Prime Minister Carney, thank you for what you're doing. I appreciate that. But it's got to go further. No question about it. And he's going to say, well, Mr. Eddie, citizen of Canada all his entire life, what would you like to see me do? And these are questions that you and I are asking as citizens. These are questions that people that are just barely over the poverty line and below the poverty line, these are things that they're dealing with every day. And you know what? What about the opposition? Whether it's Poilievre of the Conservatives or whoever's in charge of the NDP these days. Okay, those are questions they should be asking during question period. What I'd like to hear from them, as opposed to asking a question, is how they would overcome this. And maybe share that with whoever's in charge so you can actually get the damn job done. So it comes down to, what are our expectations as Canadians? Very simply put, I want to be able to feed my family. I can't do that with the money I'm making right now. And the prices are just skyrocketing beyond anything I can afford. Well, which one of those can the government control? I guess comes the question to be begged, right?
For sure. And you're right. It's not government's position to be involved in business directly. The ideal situation is for government to create an environment that business can thrive. And that does not necessarily mean just straight government handouts, the way that money has been handed out to, like EV battery plants that one never had a shovel in the ground at all, and others, those are not that's not how government should be encouraging business. It comes back to taxation levels, and it's the same for the average person on the street. The taxation levels have gone crazy. And yes, people's expectations of government at all levels also have gone crazy. And there has to be some kind of a reckoning. We have to stand back, take a deep breath, give our heads a shake and say, right, we have become really a society that now depends on government to do basically a lot of our thinking for us.
Mm-hmm.
And in exchange, we're paying a pretty hefty toll for that. We've got bureaucracies that have ballooned beyond any reasonable level. We have money that's being spent on things without any real accountability, including health care. And things like I say, like look at the EV battery plant here in Quebec that, they never broke ground on it, and the Quebec government lost millions on it.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be a mindset change somewhere along the way. However, in the meantime, governments also can step in extenuating circumstances and offer a handout, like a hand up to help to a degree. But I think the biggest thing that would help Canadians, and it's not going to happen anytime soon at any level of government, we need to establish some kind of a flat tax rate, period.
Mm-hmm.
One that's easily understood by the average person on the street when you're doing your income tax or whatever. Look at what we're paying in GST and then provincial tax here in Quebec. You look at various taxes on all sorts of things, and it has to stop. The taxpayers only have so much money in their pockets, and they're being squeezed more. But also, taxpayers have to take the responsibility of not expecting and demanding so much from government. We've gone way too far with that expectation.
Right.
And
Which
you've allowed government
at the beginning.
Yeah, we've allowed government to really come into our homes and oversee pretty much everything we're doing, and it has to stop. It really has to stop. But it's going to take a generation to change that whole mindset.
Mm-hmm.
But I really believe somewhere along the way that we need to, as levels of government, stay away from investing large sums of money, offer some tax incentives or incentives like that. That's fine. But that's it. You're not buying in as a shareholder. You're not paying for the land. You're not doing this. You're offering a tax incentive.
Correct.
Which is what a lot of states do in the U.S. It's just tax incentives. That's it. In some areas, there may be some under the table dealing, but that's a fact of life as well. But for the average person on the street, a flat tax. Boom. Yeah. No more sales tax. No more consumption tax of any kind. It's just a flat tax rate. Boom. At the federal level, provincial level, and at the municipal level.
Yeah, and we can certainly use that in Quebec. I mean, Quebec is the highest taxed state or province in all of the Americas. So, what you're professing, what you're saying right there, Gary, would make sense to a lot of Quebecers and a lot of people right across the country. It makes it very easy in terms of being able to budget yourself, being able to understand what you can expect if you qualify for the assistance programs that the governments might give you. It makes perfect sense. But you're right. This is something that's going to it's a generational thing. And the fact of the matter is, if it's a generational thing, maybe not your vote or my vote, but maybe the vote of our children, to be able to support a government that would want to actually do something like this, while businesses would agree with it as well, moving down the line. So you and I might not see something like this, but our kids genuinely could do something about that. But then you'd need to have the leadership, the leadership being a willing party to actually come up with a flat tax system. And I think that there politically is probably the biggest quote unquote trump card in this entire exercise. Not an easy thing, because you know what, it doesn't matter what party comes up with the idea, whoever's in power, the opposition will try to slander it and knock it down. It's just the way our political system works here, unfortunately, where bipartisan work, we've seen that gone out the window the last 10, 12 years. The level of bipartisan work across the floor just hasn't been there, and it's still continuing today, even though we should be working, all political parties should be working with each other for the benefit of Canada, as opposed to benefit of the party or the individual. So, well, I hope to see some of these changes as you're suggesting here, Gary, in my lifetime, in your lifetime, but only time will tell. And for the time being, any little bit helps, even though it's not being distributed properly, as you alluded to. Any little bit right now does help. Is $2,000 going to make a big difference for a family? I really can't say one way or the other. It'd be nice if that was $8,000 for a family that actually needed it. Myself as a taxpayer, if it's helping a family afford that can barely eat, you know what? Okay, I'd rather go to that as opposed to some company who cut down all the trees in Quebec for I don't know how many square kilometers, and it's just an open hole right now, and we spent all that money for nothing. To me, that's a waste of taxpayer money.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think we have a few more comments. Yeah, Matthew's been busy. He started off with another round of vote buying. Yay, more debt. Then he follows that up with, seniors and low-income people. I wonder who most of these people vote for. Ooh. Sorry, I didn't get to that before he had to go. Capitalism requires investment capital, not government handouts.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's where you and I were headed, Eddie, I guess. Well put. We're in it deep. That was to one of the comments. Grocery program relief or rebranding. Well, it's going to be a little bit of relief for some people. And, the Prime Minister admits they get an $800 check in their hand. They can spend it on whatever, not necessarily groceries. Maybe it'll come in handy for back to school stuff. I don't know. But,
right.
So it's relief in one way. It's being called the Grocery Assistance Program, but it's really just rebranding of the GST and the fact that they are adding, they're going to be increasing what anyone who qualifies for it will be getting back over the next 5 years. There's a multi-million-dollar package to encourage companies in the supply chain, the food supply chain, to make improvements to make sure our supply chain is sustainable and can deliver the goods as required.
$500 million.
Building things like, did you say 500 million?
500 million, from the Strategic Response Fund to help food businesses absorb supply chain costs. Yeah.
Right. And he also said he was hoping that it would promote perhaps like more greenhouses and facilities like that. And, I think even though that, I think it was Cucumber Farm over in Newfoundland many years ago, failed when they were trying to grow them in the greenhouse and the lights from the place.
Yeah.
There was a small, I think it might have been on the outskirts of Mount Pearl, which is just outside of St. John's. And people for miles around were complaining about the light at night. It was so bright. Anyway, it failed. It was an idea before its time, but there's no reason why we don't have facilities now strategically placed across the country growing everything. Even citrus fruits that normally we'd be importing from the U.S. through the winter.
True. True.
We should be able to grow in-house here and
Well,
and distribute.
when you look at the Okanagan Valley and you look at the Niagara area, I mean, there used to be canneries in that region, cherries, peach, whatever you want, apricots, plums, everything was grown there, and most of these farms were converted to grapes, wineries, and chateaus making wine. They shut down their cannery plants out there. So you know what? We do have the geography and the environment in some places in Canada to do this 12 months out of the year. And when you can't do it 12 months out of the year, Gary, you and I have said it many times in our program and our many shows. We are leaders in innovation. We've done things here in this country that no other country even thought of trying. Other countries look at what we've accomplished in our history, and we're actually in an envy to these countries, and they praise us for that. We can come up with all kinds of wonderful solutions, and if we can actually grow our own produce here 12 months a year and be able to use that and leverage that to helping to feed our economy and helping to feed our population, why not? Those are the kinds of programs I'd like to see my tax money go into.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally. I'm in 100% agreement with you, Eddie. We're definitely on the same page for sure.